All right, here we continue. Remember we found that Q2 in the efficient outcome is 8 cleaned up, Q1 is all 20 cleaned up, and then we were asked to find what the price of a permit is. And we have to remember that the price of a permit, and remember this is a permit to increase the ambient standard by, or the ambient pollution by 1 parts per million. The price of that permit is going to be equal to the marginal cost of cleaning up 1 more pollution unit at the ambient, at the receptor. So we know that, and we can use either one, but we know that 0.2 Q1 was equal to the marginal cost of reducing 1 part per million at the receptor for firm 1. We know that's equal to the permit price. We know Q1 is 20, so 20, 1/5 of 20, 0.2 times 20 is equal to $4 per permit. So that's our answer to part A, and the problem goes on. In part A, I would definitely expect, though it's not an easy problem, I would expect everybody in the class could get part A eventually. Now, part B is a little bit harder, at least the second part of part B. But let's move on to part B. So part B, we know that the part B asks us how much do they spend on permits and if they're auctioned off. And we know that firm 1 buys none, and firm 2 buys 12. Remember, they're cleaning up 8, and they used to emit 20, so 20 minus 8 is 12. And so since they're $4 a permit, $4 times 12, firm 2 spends $48 on pollution permit cleanup. So far so good, but this is where the problem gets a little bit hairy. And so this would definitely be like separating the A's from the A pluses or the A minuses from the A's, something like that. But now we're asked, what if each firm were given half of the permits, and then they could sell or buy permits as needed? Well, we sort of know where the market's got to go. The market's got to go that firm 1 is given half the permits. So firm 1 has 6 permits, and firm 2 has 6. We know where this is going to go. Firm 1 is going to sell 6 to firm 2. And we also know, and I'm going to show you why we know it. That's sort of above and beyond. That's the A plus separator. But this part isn't too bad. We know that the pollution permit market is going to get us to the efficient allocation, and we know that the market's going to clear at that optimal marginal cost of cleaning up pollution at the receptors. I'm going to show you why it is in a second. But anyway, firm 1 will sell 6 to firm 2. They're going to be worth $4 a pop, and so firm 2 pays $24 to firm 1 for 6 permits. Now remember, this is a good illustration of what we talked about in class. When the permits are auctioned off, the government gets $48 of revenue. Here, the permits are allocated 50-50. Government gets no money, and firm 2 pays 24, half of what it was paying before. And instead of paying the government that, the firm 2 pays firm 1 that 24. So that's the sort of the technical illustration of what we saw when we thought this through in class. What I wanted to do, just to show you where this comes from, is to think of the supply and demand for permits in this case. And on the demand side, you know that every time Firm 2 buys a permit, Firm 2's costs are going to go down by 0.5 times 14 minus Q, where Q is the number of permits that it buys. And realize that if there were no permits traded, if there were no permits traded, I should finish this demand curve. If there were no permits traded, Firm 2 is going to have to clean up 14 tons of pollution. But every permit it buys, remember that's Q, Q is the number of permits, it's going to have to clean up one less unit of pollution. And so its costs of the reduction in its marginal costs are 0.5, remember it was 0.5 Q2 where Q2 was the cleanup. The benefit of having one more permit will be the reduction in that marginal cost. And the formula for that is 0.5 times the quantity 14 minus Q. And we can also, by the same logic, get the supply curve. Now, initially, firm 1 would also have to clean up 14 if it used its if it used its 6 permits. But if it were cheaper for it to clean up more and sell those permits, as we know from our work earlier that it will be, we know that firm 1's costs of cleaning up extra, and remember we're cleaning up units of pollution at the receptor, we know that those costs were 0.2 Q1, and so if firm 1 has to clean up 14 because it has only 6 permits to start with, but every permit that it releases for sale is going to cost it 0.2 times 14 plus however many permits it's already sold. So the first one would cost 0.2 times 15 to supply, the second one would cost 0.2 times 16 to supply, etc. So here we have the supply and demand. So if we work this out, the demand curve is P equals 7 minus 0.5 Q, and where Q again is not cleanup. In this case, this is the number of permits exchanged. And then the supply curve is P equals 2.8 plus 0.2 Q. And I graphed that for you. So let me show you what that graph looks like, and you'll see that the market clears just where we would expect it to. One sec. So I've loaded that graph. Here it is. Here, I think it is, yes. All right, so I've just mapped that 2.5 plus 0.2 times Q, and I've mapped that 7 minus 0.5 Q. And here I have the supply and demand for permits, and you see that the market clears at 6 permits exchanged, and at a price of 4. I just realized now that these portions of the demand and supply curve are irrelevant. Well, the demand curve is relevant, but this portion of the supply curve is irrelevant because firm 1 only has 6 permits to sell, and even if it wanted to, it couldn't supply any more than that. But there we have it. That's the market. That's the market clearing price, and that's a little more than you probably wanted to know.